It's 6:01 a.m. I've been up for a few hours now and watching some videos from my favorite astrologers and uncovering different things and expanding my consciousness, if you will, or rediscovering my consciousness. I sit here this morning and kind of playing around with some of this technology, kind of finding out some new things. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I haven't just made like a video like this where I just kind of get on here and talk, but I wanted to talk about something that I've been quite obsessed with lately. And of course, Scorpio energy over here, 12th house Scorpio sun, Pluto, Mars, and Sun in Scorpio. Uh, I have a tendency to get a little obsessive over things. One of the things I've been obsessed with lately is anxiety. I've been fascinated by anxiety, obsessed with it. There have been moments where this obsession has taken me down some pretty dark roads and dark thoughts and dark places. There's also been some times where this obsession has revealed to me a lot of positive things about how anxiety can actually help us. But as I was thinking about it today, and I look at the world around me, just observing, seeing the uptick seemingly in anxiety in the world, and I have to ask myself, why is this the case? Why are so many people anxious and depressed? I think those two things kind of go hand in hand. I think the way that we kind of view these things, I wonder if we are perceiving these things, this anxiety, the depression that we experience as humans. I wonder if we're perceiving it in the right way. Or is there a right way? Is there a wrong way? But let me explain. Generally, people talk about anxiety, it's constantly worrying about the future. And when you talk about depression, it's constantly worried about the past or constantly thinking about the past and, the things that you might have let gone by the wayside. But I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about anxiety. And at least for me and my experience with it. And this morning, I had like a whole new way of perceiving it. You see, I thought anxiety was constantly worrying about the future, worrying about what's going to happen. But then I realized that all that exists right now is this moment. I think what's the cool thing about astrology is that I can see into the future in a way to see what's coming or what are the potential things that can come. But all of these transits still have happened before. Maybe not in this exact way, but Pluto's been in Aquarius before. Neptune has been in Pisces before, right? So, is there really anything new under the sun? I think when it comes to anxiety, is that it's this constant worry about the future. But what I really think is that it is predicated off of our experiences that we have already had. I find that it is the desire to reclaim some part of yourself before you experienced a shift, before you experienced a certain event that may have caused some sort of trauma, that may have caused some sort of splintering in your mind, that may have caused some sort of uncomfortable situation that caused you to grow, that caused you to shed a situation, to shed a part of yourself, to shed a life. And now that aspect of you is sensitive. Anxiety is the desire to go back to how things were before you were anxious. And so when you arrive at a destination that looks similar to something that you experienced before, you wonder how you're going to handle that situation. You wonder how you're going to handle that moment. And you desperately want to go back to a time before anxiety kicked in. So it's really more so an obsession with the past, an obsession with who you were before that event, an obsession, a fascination with who you were before that event and thinking that somehow going back to that place and reclaiming that place and stepping fully into that place is going to solve your problems right now. And I think there's an element of anxiety that shadow work is involved. Kind of stepping into that place, using the vehicle of our imagination to revisit those places, to revisit those events, those memories, and to feel those emotions that we felt then. But we can never fully go back. And I think that's the scary part. That's the part that frightens us the most when it comes to anxiety, is that we can never fully go back. And thus, we will be plagued with the information that we now have about that event, about that thing, and we can never give that information back. It's there. It is ingrained within us. So thus, we may come across another similar event or a crossroads that reminds us of that event, that rekindles that memory, and we get anxious. We get worried. We wonder if we can make it through that moment, but you already did. And that's the interesting thing about it. And then you take the other side of it, the depression aspect, where it's this constant just fascination about the past, about when things were good, when things were just. And you can't even really look too much into the future. And I think with this one, it's actually the reverse too. See, I always thought that anxiety was just worrying about the future. And really, it's just trying to desperately clamber onto the past. And I think depression is the flip. We think it's just desperately wanting to clamber onto the past, but really it's this almost this weirdness, this energy where it's like the future without that thing, can I even achieve the same heights? Can I even achieve the same jubilations, the same joys? Is it even possible? I think about it like a roller coaster. If anxiety is like the height of it, the scary part of the anxiety is knowing that you're going to come down and experience that drop feeling in your gut, that thrill ride. Whereas depression, it's like you're wondering, well, shoot, can this next hill match that last hill that I was on? It's not even going to live up to those standards. So why bother? I just went down on that thrill ride. How do I even know that the next one's going to be as good? Why bother? So it's these two things right here, these two emotions, these two things that everybody experiences, anxiety, depression, where I feel like they do go hand in hand. It's the way that we perceive these things that really affects our present moment. And as someone who deals with a fair amount of anxiety, someone who has experienced a fair amount of anxiety, at least from my conscious memory, I don't necessarily remember anxiety pre 2017. It was really in 2017 when it really started to kick in. I know I had some anxious moments before then, but as far as it being, and I can be honest and have some humility about this, one of the more dominant vibrations of my life, I don't remember it being that dominant before 2017. So I have to look back and it's like, what was different? What part of myself pre 2017 am I trying to claim? Is there some part of that self that I feel is more suited to live this current moment, to be in this current moment, to handle the things that are coming at me? Just like the cool beams of light that you see on your screen right now. But we cannot be afraid of our own evolution. We cannot be afraid of this information that's coming through. But the true information that I believe is going to be coming through especially for this next decade, is from within. So, this anxiety that a lot of people are feeling, this worry, this angst, if you will, it's based off of the past. It's based off of thinking that the golden years are behind us. Anxiety and depression kind of do the same thing. It's believing that the golden years are behind us. It's just that one is more scared of the future, but simultaneously obsessed with anxiety. And the other one is just, oh, well, what's the point? But putting yourself in the vibration that the golden years are behind you, instead of saying that the golden years are right now and the golden years are in front of you, we have to understand that if everything is a cycle, then yeah, maybe the golden years are behind us, but the golden years are also in front of you at the same time, simultaneously. So why can't both be true? And why do we have to rival one against the other? And I think that's the key thing here. I think so many people are trying to manifest the golden ages of the past, thinking that that is what we need right now to save us. That's what we need right now to lean on. Those are the guardrails that we need to move into the future. But what I find and what I'm discovering is that if we can really tap in and really remember who we are, and I people will use different things. One of my things that I say is a radiator of love, and I'm asking myself, well, what does that even mean? I have it tattooed on my arm. I also have integrity tattooed on my arm. And for me, being that radiator of love is someone that does walk in their spiritual integrity and can have the humility to admit to their anxieties, their depressions, their worries, their fears, but also continues to move forward, not in spite of them, but empowered by the deeper realization that we come from love and we are of love. And, that doesn't mean that every day is going to be easy or a piece of cake or a piece of pie. You know what I'm saying? Some days are going to be harder than others. You're going to experience the wave of emotions as a human. You can't eliminate anxiety. You can't get rid of anxiety. You can't get rid of depression. You can't eliminate these things. These are not things that need to be cured, which I think is one of the and I think it came from good intentions. I think it came from good intentions because some people may get into such a rut with these things, and anxiety and depression can wreck and ruin and lord over their life so much to where it makes them hard to function. So I think a lot of the things that we have with like medications and psychology and other sort of stuff, I think it is well intentioned. But I think we missed the mark here. I don't think the goal was to cure us of these things, to cure us of our anxieties, to cure us of our depressions. I think the mark is to understand that these are vibrations that we will all experience at different levels of this incarnation, at different cycles, different periods, and that is perfectly okay. But we must always remember to come back to our spiritual integrity and to come back to source and to realize that these feelings, these emotions, these vibrations, we will not always feel them. They will not always be, and that we can move forward into a more beautiful, more understanding, more compassionate, a more forgiving version of ourselves. And that's what I got for you guys this morning. I've just been pondering on that, and hopefully this message helps you. Um, I don't. I think my fascination with anxiety is not going to go away anytime soon, and I think it's because I there's so many people out there. Like guys, there's so many people out there that have this false perception of anxiety. They think it's something that needs to be cured. They think it's something that needs to go away. They think it's something that they have when it's really something that they experience. And maybe that could be even a bit of a misnomer on my behalf. Maybe some people do have anxiety, like more anxiety than other people. And other people simply experience it, but other people just have it. And maybe there's an astrological thing in there too. Maybe I can kind of peer in to see what astrological markers may show someone that may experience or have anxiety more than someone else, right? But I still find it to be a superpower. Why? I think it's because it is a gateway to healing. It is a gateway to shadow work, because if you're constantly trying to reclaim a part of yourself that you believe is stronger and more prepared to deal with the oncoming energies, the oncoming events, the things that are happening that you are nervous about, then you can revisit those places, heal those places, do the work in those places, come back to the present moment and realize that you had everything that you already needed within you to make it through that moment. Now, how beautiful of a story is that? How beautiful is that? That's a much more healed way at looking and perceiving anxiety. And my whole journey with it will continue to evolve. My perception of it will continue to evolve, but I find that using it as a portal, if you will, to not reclaim, like, I guess, the ego of who I was in that moment before the anxiety happened, before 2017, before whatever it was that started making me more anxious in the world, to start to worry about every little thing and worrying about all my thoughts and being obsessive over these thoughts and stuff like that. And like being afraid that I'm going to manifest some crazy reality because of this shit. I think it's really more so remembering that the answers were always within, and that I don't need to rely on, I guess, the guardrail of who I was in the past, mainly from an ego standpoint, right? And the ego isn't all bad, but I think it's more so from relying on who you was in the past from the ego standpoint, instead of tapping into the spiritual you, the real you, that is not conditioned upon by what has happened, the things here in this matrix. It's unconditioned upon. But we have all these different layers and these different masks that we have to kind of filter through, that we have to kind of figure out. So, I think part of my mission here is to help people to realize that the anxiety that they experience is not inherently negative, and that actually it can be a vehicle for their healing. But if you continue to avoid it, if you continue to suppress it, if you continue to push it down and avoid it and not go head on into it, then you will continue to experience the heights of anxiety and the intensities of it over and over and over again, instead of actually doing the shadow work and going back to those places and healing them and realizing that you are not that same person before. You are someone different. You have evolved. You have grown. And when you come back to the present moment and you begin to embrace that version of yourself, you'll start to uncover all these seemingly hidden powers that you didn't even know that you had. That were always there. It's just that you were too focused on a previous stage to see just how awesome you are right now. It's kind of like, if I may so use a nerdy reference, it's kind of like being a Charizard and worrying about what it was like when you were a Charmeleon. You got wings. You can fly now. So take to the skies. Take to the skies, beloved.